Hey, Pro Organizers. My name is Melissa Klug, and you are listening to the Pro Organizer Studio podcast. Professional organizing changed my entire life. After 20 years of working at huge companies, I started working for myself. I opened a professional organizing business, grew it to six figures, and I never looked back. Now I get to spend all day, every day, teaching organizers around the world how to find clients, how to market and sell yourselves, how to turn this business into what you want it to be. Whether you have been in business for 15 minutes or 15 years, you have a home at Pro Organizer Studio. I'm excited that you're here. Let's get started. Hey, Pro Organizers, it's Melissa. And today I want to tell you with my friend Missy how not to be like us, how not to be like me. And you will understand a little bit more once we get into it. But before we get started, I just want to give everyone a reminder, my Organizing Essentials course, which was made straight from my heart about my favorite subject, which is organizing with clients. We have a wonderful community of people in Organizing Essentials, and all we do is talk about how to be a better organizer for our clients. So if you are trying to learn a little bit better how to work with clients, how to work through some of the psychology of clients, why they won't say goodbye to things, any of those difficult client situations, Organizing Essentials is for you. We are closing on May 31st. When we reopen, our price will be going up significantly. So I would love for you to get in before that deadline. If you want to go to proorganizerstudio.com/OE, you can sign up there. It's $249 for lifetime access, and you get one Zoom a month with me, and I would love to have you in our group. All right, so without further ado, my friend Missy and I want to tell you how to not be like us. Here we go. Have a great week, organizers. I'm going to look up what you said to me earlier today because you
Okay.
said
The intro.
yes.
I did play it for Andy.
Okay, hold on. Where is it? Okay.
I just started the intro of our podcast. So this is a cautionary tale. Please do the opposite of everything we do, unless you'd like to burn out and stress yourself out and also start dropping balls left and right, including family, friends, and relationships that are important to you. Okay, let's dive into it.
All right. And I said perfect, no notes, right?
Yeah.
First of all, this is going up. You will have heard Missy 2 weeks ago. If you listen regularly, I think 2 episodes ago, I had Missy on. And Missy's back. I mean, you have to listen to me every week. So you can listen to Missy once every other week. But this started very organically. Missy and I are in real life friends, and we both are organizers in the Twin Cities. And we frequently talk about, clients and situations of business and all the things. And we realize, I mean, we have the same problem. Is that fair?
That is accurate.
Yes. Say multiple problems that are similar.
This particular one
exactly.
we're going to discuss today is that we both are Enneagram 2s. We
Yes.
like to make people happy. We like to help people. It's part of the reason we got into the profession that we're in, right?
Yes.
Okay. And
But
sometimes we take it too far.
sometimes, and I don't like buzzwords a lot. And I also think like, there's so many words right now that are like vastly overused. But really, what we're talking about is having good or not great boundaries with
Keywords.
clients. Blurring the lines is what I like to call it. And I want to back up. So I've done some podcasts about Enneagram, and I am a person who, as part of my career path in life, I've had to take a bunch of, personality tests and other things like that. Myers-Briggs, obviously, and a bunch of others. But to me, Enneagram, when I first heard about it, kind of at the start of my work at Pro Organizer Studio, I had never heard of it before. And Lori Palau was on and she was talking about it. And Enneagram to me describes my personality so effectively. And also, I believe I have used it with other people in my life and it describes them so effectively that it's actually, I think, a tad scary. Do you agree?
Yeah. Yes. And they always tell you try not to guess anybody else's type or whatever. And I think that's probably true across all personality tests.
100%.
And it's really hard not to,
Yeah.
you know, to just like wonder. But for example, when Andy figured out his number, I had no hot clue. I was like, wait, that's what's going on inside your head.
Interesting. Okay. There is a there's a clip from the show New Girl One of the characters goes, "Are you telling me that you just sit around all day and think about what other people are thinking and feeling?" And it's just, "Yes, don't you?" They're like, "No." And that's
That
our
sounds exhausting. Yeah.
yeah. Enneagram 2, yes, it sounds exhausting. Enneagram 2 is the helper. And of course, I have aspects, we all have aspects of other Enneagram types in our personality, but 2 is, I always say I'm a hard 2. And what that means to me is like so many of those characteristics, like I definitely subsume myself in helping others. I will do things that are a detriment to myself because I don't want to disappoint someone else. I've told this story before, but I saw on Instagram one time that someone was like, Enneagram 2 gets kidnapped. And it's the person in the back of the car. And she's like, "Hey, Mr. Kidnapper, you haven't stopped for a while. Are you tired? Do you want me to drive? Like, I have a snack in my bag. Would you like a snack?" I'm like, oh my gosh, I've never been described so perfectly in my entire life, right?
That's a
But
great one.
because you and I are like that, and we are also in a helping industry, that can lead to challenging situations.
Yeah. And if left untreated, burnout.
Yes. And if left untreated without taking,
Please see your doctor.
yeah, we need to think of a name for a drug that we could take for some sort of prescription medication that we could take
Yeah.
for this
You may
condition.
need a nap and also to say no to some things.
Yes. But the whole point of this is Missy and I were having a very organic conversation about a client she had. And this client had, let me just say, asked her for a 45-second turnaround thing. Is that a fair way to say it?
Yeah. I had a client where we started with a large team of 6 on day 1. We got an amazing amount of work done, and we're coming back for day 2. It's the evening before day 2. And I get a text that says, "Hey, my kiddo was homesick, and then their fever just spiked tonight. I really don't think it's a good idea for you guys to come tomorrow." And I was like, "No problem. Totally understand. None of us want to get sick either. Hope he feels better. I'll send you some reschedule options tomorrow." Great. I text the team, "Hey, please confirm, 5 other people, please confirm that you will not drive to this location tomorrow." And they're all like, "Confirm." Great. Perfect. I go to bed. I wake up in the morning and I've already replanned my day. I had canceled 2 meetings. I put them back on the calendar. I'm getting ready to go to the first one. And I look at my phone and there's a text sent real late at night that's, "Hey, I think I can make it work. Can you all still come?" And I'm like, "Oh my gosh." Now we talked about
The text came to you at 1 in the morning.
it did.
You're seeing it at what, 6, I think?
6, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I was just like, "Okay, Missy, this is a really great opportunity to practice your boundaries. Like, you need to say no. This is an obvious no. The whole team is already canceled. Canceled means canceled. We've canceled it."
And
And
I will also add that Missy and I align on something else very specific. We
oh, yeah,
love it when people cancel plans on us.
we love a
I
cancel plan.
never have a cancellation policy in my business, which maybe you could argue is a boundary that I need, but I don't because 100% of the time someone cancels on me, I'm like, cool, that is great news to me. And you felt
Yes,
the same way about this situation. If I'm,
always.
yes,
Because there is always other things we can be doing.
always.
Even if it's just, "Oh my gosh, I really need a nap this week." I mean, there I can fill the day, no problem. There's always a running to-do list. And I started adding some things in of, "Oh, I can run this errand that I've been putting off." And to be fair, it was for that client. So I was like, "Okay, day's been reconfigured." And now she wants us back. And I'm like, "Oh boy." So I put on my big girl boundary pants, I guess. And it's just, "You know what? No, I've already told the team no. Some may have already rescheduled their days. I've rescheduled mine. Like, I'm not even available at the start time anymore. Let's just reschedule. Here are some dates."
And I, as your friend, was like, good for you. I'm so proud of you. That is great. This is crazy. And you can't, totally change around 72 people's schedule. But I was like, so happy for you, right?
Yeah, you are cheering me on.
Because you needed the day. You
Yeah.
needed the day and you really had planned other things.
So
And
then
then, da 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 da.
And then the replies start coming in, "Are you sure there's not even one person who can come today? I really want to get this done. Those other dates you sent me don't work. It's now or never," essentially was the vibe. And I was just like, "Oh And I know how close we are to getting the house to a place where she can really fully relax. And I was like, I'll see what I can do. And Melissa was just like, oh, hell no. Like,
I did. I think I actually said, "Oh, hell no."
she's like, you don't know, yeah. Anyway, not a fan then of me changing my mind and just opening up the door to the possibility. So I check with the team. And I get one reply back almost immediately of, "Yeah, let's do it. Game on. Like, I'm in the right headspace for it. Let's go. Let's just get it finished." This was from the team member who's going to build most of the things. She's got her drill ready. We're putting holes in the wall. Things are happening. And I was like, "Well, okay." I mean, I really couldn't do it without that one person because I don't build anything. So I'm like, okay, even if it's just the two of us, we can go for a few hours and just get like the minimum amount done. Because now I have it in my head that I do need a break and I would like some downtime, not hands-on work. So I was able to recall 4 out of the 6 of us for all of them partial days, not a complete day. And the client was so dang sweet and appreciative and grateful. And we got the house to like such a good spot. You could see the relief. She couldn't stop talking about how relieved she was. And I was like, because the one thing Melissa had said to me was, "You're going to be mad at yourself if you go." And I replied, "I'm gonna be mad at myself either way because who put me in this situation?" And she goes, "Well, that's a fair point."
Yes. And in my defense, when
Yeah.
you said at the end of the day, when you're like, she was so happy, and this was a particular situation where you really were helping her a tremendous amount,
Yeah.
and she was so happy and she was so relieved. And I was like, good for you. Like, you made the right choice. Like, your gut was right that it was the right thing for you to go and do. And one of the things we'll talk about throughout this whole thing is it would have been a problem for future you. This thing was still going to be on your calendar at some point, and to some degree it was, let's just get it done, and
Yeah.
then, it would be a good ending versus a womp womp kind of an ending.
Yeah, or like we're not sure when we're gonna get to this again, and now you're on the waiting list, waiting for somebody else to reschedule, and it'd be a whole thing. So yeah, I do agree that I'm grateful that it's all wrapped up now in a nice, pretty bow. Even it's good, and yet it was really hard. I held my boundary for like less than an hour.
Yeah. I think it was more like 20 minutes, but anyway, whatever. For that 20 minutes, I was really proud.
Probably true. I really Yeah, and I think it's so tricky because there are times where it's totally appropriate to hold the boundary and be like, "No, we're not doing it." And there are times where it is okay and maybe even right or appropriate to bend those rules,
Yes.
and that's different for everybody, and so kind of navigating that is tricky.
Yes. And I do wanna get into that. Before we get into that, I would like to tell everyone why I'm a hypocrite. Would you like to also hear that? I mean, I know.
I'm, like, really giddy for this part because this is how this whole idea got started because of what happened to both of us within a 24-hour time span.
Yes. I mean, when I tell you, we were recording this podcast on Friday afternoon.
Yeah.
I think we started this conversation about, do you know what we need a podcast about? How you and I are really bad at boundaries, 8 hours ago, or maybe probably not, maybe
Less
a
than
little
that,
earlier than that. But
maybe.
I guess
Oh,
go,
yeah,
do you want to record a podcast about it this afternoon? Let's do it
yeah.
because it's both fresh in our mind. I would like to explain to you why that story that Missy just told about Melissa was so bad and said, hold the boundary, why I'm a freaking hypocrite. Okay. Because here's why. I'm not going to bore everyone with the story like Missy has been bored with it. I've had 2 very stressful weeks and just going from one thing to another, no sleep. You know that Lady Gaga Instagram sound, like bus, club, another club, no sleep. That is how my last 2 weeks have been, only with less vocal talent. And so last night, so I woke up yesterday at 5 in the morning. I had about 5 hours of sleep. I had an intensely full day. I had a client that was super hard work. Then I went straight from that to try to make myself look presentable because it was softball senior night. So getting tons of pictures taken. So I had to actually look like I was put together and not sweaty and gross from my client's house. There were 2 softball games. The wind was blowing 212 miles an hour, dust everywhere. So 4 hours of softball. Then we went from 4 hours of softball into softball senior banquet. And I got home at 10 o'clock last night. Okay. So I had a, 15-hour day. So this whole day, it was a lot. By the way, it was lovely, but it was a lot. You can, both of those things can be true. And messaging Missy and several of my other friends, I'm doing nothing tomorrow. I'm sleeping in. I'm going to sleep as late as I want to. And I got an office day and the weather's going to be cruddy. And I'm just going to snuggle in and I'm going to sit at my laptop. I'll probably have my laptop in bed. I'm going to have such a nice day and I'm not going to leave my house. So the first problem was,
You said that out loud.
well, correct. I did. I should have kept my feelings to myself, which I'm not good at. First problem was could sleep as late as I want. Body was like 6 a.m. Chip chop. Let's go. Okay. Wide awake at 6 a.m. And I'm like, I really try to go back to sleep. It wasn't happening. Okay, fine. So I'm up. So I start working. And one of the things that I do is I text a long-term client of mine. I've done a huge move for her, and we had a few little straggly things that she wasn't in a particular hurry for, but I had been putting her off on these straggly things for a couple weeks. Okay. And so I texted her and I'm like, hey, I know that we both kind of had a week. She has also had a very crazy week. And I said, so I just want to kind of reconvene. You can have any day you want next week. I will make it happen. And she responds back, I'm not doing anything today. And I would really love to tackle some of these things. And I go, oh, Missy is gonna fillet me. I'm gonna get so roasted by Missi McKown. And so I just go, I get, the like devil angel on your shoulder, right? I was doing the devil angel. And I was like, okay, I was so excited to stay home. But I said, the alternative is going to be, first of all, I have been promising that we're a little loosey goosey with scheduling this client. And I'm like, I have been promising her for a couple weeks and she's excited today. And I'm not so like exhausted, can't get out of bed that I can't do it. And I'm like, and also, it's going to be a problem for me at another point. It's going to be a problem for me Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, another day that I have another stressful week. Why don't I just go and do it? And so my hypocritical butt left the house to go to my client. I was able to crank out. We did a nice little tour, made a list of the things that needed to get done. And I said to her, what would make you happy if I could complete one thing for you today? And she was very cool. She didn't expect me to do all 7 things. And we came up with it would make me really happy to do X, Y, and Z. And I said, no problem. And I did those things. And she was thrilled. And I was thrilled that I'm not going to have to do it on Monday.
Yep.
And now I'm home. But again, big giant hypocrite. Because I was really so proud of Missy. And if I had gone to her this morning and said, what should I do? She would have said, stay home.
Yeah, but you didn't. Instead, you said, remember yesterday when I told you not to go to that client's house and you went anyway? And I said, what did you do?
Yes, you did. Because you knew I was feeling guilty about something and I had to come clean.
But I get it though.
Yeah. And the commonality is, so here's my defensiveness for myself. First of all, I am very bad at saying no. I don't like disappointing people. I am actively working on that as a human being. And because I do realize that I really do sub-optimize my own life quite a bit because I can't say no. And I don't want that because it really does, as you said, can lead to burnout. And I am personally on the razor's edge of that point right now.
Yeah.
And I don't want that.
Right.
For myself or my family or the people that I like to serve.
Yeah.
But I would also say that it all depends on the person that you're willing to do it for. And the reason I said yes to this person today was because she's insanely nice. Her house is lovely. I enjoy spending time working with her. It's not a very challenging, stressful situation to go into.
Right.
And she has paid me many thousands of dollars in the last 6 weeks.
Recent days. Yeah.
Many thousands. And so I think you were kind of in the same position with this other client. Not only were there some, really tangible things that you wanted to finish for her, but you were like, she has spent a lot of money with me already.
Yeah. And I understand why she's stressed. And I know that we can help take that away. And I'm like, this is something we can do. I got a few team members to agree to come back and we can do it. We can fix these areas of her house where she's just been literally just stuck and can't figure it out. And we talked about this yesterday. We love it when clients are exuberant, about the
Yes.
work that's been done. And when they're like, that'll do. You
What do you
cried,
mean that'll
you cried.
do?
You're
It's
like,
great.
I'm
How dare
sitting
you?
here. Yeah. And so when you're working with someone who's just, oh my gosh, this is the best. And yes, you understand my brain. Like, there's no thing as an altruistic act, right? We talked about this last time. Like, you get something from that too. Yeah. There are people that you just want to help that you're like, okay, it is within my power to do. Let's do it. Let's just bend. It's 3 o'clock and I am mostly done with work.
Yeah, and that's a great point. I'm sitting here, I've been at my house for an hour, I was there, I think I lost 4 hours of my do nothing day, and I'm still fine. It's 3 in the afternoon. After we get done here, I will probably go take a little nap and then start the rest of my evening. But I think it's a combination, like, I know that there are a lot of organizers that want, "Give me a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 step process to how I would decide." I
Mhm.
can't do that, but what I can do is I did some mental calculus of, okay, let me put all these things together. She's an important client. She's given me a very lucrative referral. She's an incredibly nice person. I like her house, blah, blah, blah. All those things. I do that calculus and I go, this is the right decision. I would
Yeah.
not have said yes today to a vast number of other people.
Sure, to the people that cancel last minute, to the
Correct.
people yeah, I understand.
I have a guy that I've told Missy about who just keeps asking me for a weekend, or he'll email me and ask me to come the next day. I'm not going to do it for him.
Yeah.
I will do it for someone that mental calculus gives you the 5 green check marks of, "Yeah, this makes sense
Yeah.
for me to blur that line a little bit."
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. One of the things you wanted to bring up too is you can swing the other way too and be, like, on the super rigid scale.
Yes. So one of the things that we were talking about is, so we could say that you and I have some problems with boundaries on one end. I also believe one of my core beliefs of what makes what easy for me to say, what
Mhm.
makes a successful organizer is something that is not inherent to a lot of organizers, which is flexibility. And what I
Mhm.
mean by that is there are a lot of organizers who come from their brain is so organized as well that they're like, I need a set of steps. I need to know this is a rule and then this is a rule and we don't violate those rules, that type of thing. And that's just how your brain works, right?
Yeah.
What I see a lot is I appreciate and I think it is really smart when people have those boundaries of things that, I always say, if you're going to be resentful of it, then you shouldn't do it. But
Absolutely.
I also believe very much that you can make so many boundaries and have so many rigid rules that you are actually not servicing your client in a way that makes sense. And sometimes bending those boundaries or bending those rules in the right case is actually going to get you so much more in the long run.
For sure. Yeah.
And knowing where that line is. And
Mhm.
by the way, you get to make all the rules. And
Right.
if you are a very strong, like, I will never ever under any circumstance work on a Monday afternoon, and you have a
Yeah.
client that's the only day I can work is Monday. You're like, "I'm sorry, you're gonna have to go somewhere else." That is totally within your right to do. You just also have to understand you might be sub-optimizing certain parts of your business, and
Sure.
that's your right.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think there's also room to recognize that, you know, we can change our own mind next week. The exact same situation could come up, and hey, I changed my mind. I know I canceled yesterday, but can you still pull things together? And if it's not a good week for you, you can just be like, no,
Yeah,
I'm sorry, our next availability is blah.
right. And I do that a lot. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm tattling on myself about my bad behaviors. I'm not telling you about all the times that I have good behaviors, and
Right.
I have been working on that in myself recently because I recognize that me burning out or me not wanting to do certain parts of my job anymore would be detrimental.
Maybe we should talk about the things we are doing well, because To be honest, I agree with you. I do feel like I've been better with boundaries and saying, like, yes, we can do that. No, we can't. Here's why. Here's when we can do those things. And so this one just really caught me by surprise because I said no and then caved. And then that felt weird.
Yeah. Well, and the one thing too, again, not to keep, on this one situation you had because it was very unique, but one of the things that I do believe, and I said it to you in our back and forth, was I really do believe this about a lot of our clients. In a lot of ways, we are having to retrain our clients, right? We are having to retrain their
Oh yeah.
brains. We're having to retrain their behaviors, all of the things. And so, one of the things I said to you is sometimes you have to treat a client like a small child. And I have seen this before with some of my clients of you're rewarding bad behavior. And I don't mean you in this situation, but just it's about the overall. If I reward a lot of bad behavior, if I have a client, we were talking about I don't have a
Yeah.
cancellation policy, but I have had a client that I've had to say, hey, I can't have you cancel 3 minutes beforehand 4 times in a row. We've got
Right.
to talk about that.
Right.
When you reward that behavior, sometimes you then enable a client. By the way, that
Mhm.
includes behavior like this, not even about an appointment. If the
Right.
client is texting you at all hours of the day and night and you're
Mhm.
responding, if the
Mhm.
client is asking you, we see this in IO a lot, a client like gets the scope of the project and then they immediately creep the scope of the project. There
Yeah.
was a woman in IO the other day that had a situation where she had given the client a proposal and the client was like, "Oh, this is too much. Can we scale it back?" And she's, "Yeah, I can do X, Y, and Z." But then the client still wanted her to do the X, Y, and Z even though she didn't want to pay for it. And
Right.
all of this is within our control of saying, "Hey, we need to talk about we're not going to do this." Or you do not have to respond to a client just because they text you at 9 o'clock at night, that type of thing.
Oh, yeah. Yes. That was my favorite, like, to be able to respond to be like, "Hey, I'm with family. I'll get to this tomorrow,"
Right.
because I do wanna say, "I saw this." I mean, not even 9, like, sometimes I'm cutting it off at 6. Like,
Yeah. Today
but
I'm going to be cutting it off at 4.
yeah.
So
It's Friday. Yeah.
yeah. But
So,
I
yeah.
just want people to think about it's not just there are a lot of behaviors that we end up doing in our business that then give our clients permission. And I have found that in myself before of I will be annoyed that a client is texting me. And then
Mm.
I'm like, well, how many other times have I texted them back at 7 o'clock on a Sunday?
Right, right, right. Yeah.
That's a me problem.
I know. Yeah, and that was one of the things we talked about too, is usually if we're frustrated about something with a client, it's usually something we did.
Yes. A
And
hundred percent.
it's easier to not look at ourselves.
Yeah. Why do you think it's so hard for us? I mean, I know the answer for me, but why is it hard for you to have these kinds of boundaries?
Oh man. Should we talk about my childhood? Um, I
Yes, lay
don't.
down on the couch.
Yeah. Henry's moved, I can lay down.
Time for
Um,
therapy.
yeah. No, but truly though, I think a lot of it does come from, I'll speak for myself, growing up in a house where there was a lot of unpredictability
Yeah.
and a lot of having to grow up quickly from parents getting divorced and them having, my mom having more responsibility outside of the home. I became a grown up a little bit faster than normal. And so I have always been the person who's looking after other people and making sure they're okay. Very much organizing fits. Like here's an opportunity to help somebody feel better. Great. Sign me up. And so then when that person is saying, "Oh, your choice is not what I was expecting," it literally tugs at my heartstrings.
Yeah, yeah,
Dang it. Because I do really care about, I know I keep bringing it back to this one because it was just what happened this week, but I really do care about that client and want them to be happy and want them to have a home that makes them feel calm and peaceful and relaxed that they can enjoy without stress. So when given the opportunity to make it happen that day, and I was just like, okay.
yeah,
Okay, our favorite movie, Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
yeah.
Cameron in the car. I'll
I'll
go.
go, I'll go, I'll
I'll
go.
go. Yeah.
Okay,
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 I'll
okay.
go.
Yes.
That.
If you don't know what we're talking about, just go run. If you do not know every word to Ferris Bueller's Day Off, I need you to go and rectify that right at this very moment.
I'm sure it's streaming absolutely nowhere, but buy it.
Oh, I bet it is. I bet you
You
can
think?
find it. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
It's a classic. I think that's really true. I think that, so many things, whether we want them or not, come back to our childhood, right?
Oh,
And
for
I
sure.
mean that's when all of the things are formed, right? That's when your
Our
core
beliefs
personality.
and our beliefs about the world and how we should act and respond in it are made by like age 8, you know? And
Yes.
so it takes some real deep neural pathway work
Yes.
to shift and change those. And so it's very much my knee jerk default reaction
Yes.
is to people.
Well, and yeah, and I'm a very deep people pleaser, and I make this joke, but it's not really a joke. Sometimes most jokes have a lot of truth in them. I go, validation is my love language. When someone tells me that I am a pretty princess,
Yeah.
"Oh my gosh, this room is so amazing." One of my clients called me magical last week, and I was like,
Yeah.
"Thanks. I
You
know."
can live off of magical for 3 days, and
I
how are you
really
gonna
can
get that? Yeah.
100%. I mean, I wish I didn't, but I very much thrive on this person appreciates me. So I'm sure that somebody can do a deep analysis of you didn't get enough love or whatever that looks like, right? But I do really like when I am able to help people and when I go, "Oh, I am doing something that makes their life easier," and I really thrive and they appreciate it.
Yeah.
I thrive on that.
Yeah. I hear that.
That's why when we had the conversation about it, it was a friend of ours who a client had been like, "Oh, okay." Not as appreciative as any of us would want. I'm like, "No, I need more than that." And it's,
Yeah.
"No, I'm a service provider. You're paying me." And you can just be like, "Okay, cool, thanks." Or
Yeah.
not even that. And you're still paying me and I'm done. But I'm like, "No, I need more." I need you to
Yeah.
tell me that I did a good job and pat me on the head.
Yeah, it's always fun when you can see, like, the excitement in their eyes, or they're literally jumping up and down, or you're getting a hug, there's yeah. So, yeah, maybe we do need more therapy.
I know I do. Yeah, but I think that's part of it too. And that's why sometimes I am, like I said, I do wanna praise myself a little bit that I am doing so much better on this because I think even 4 or 5 years ago, I would have just say jump and I'll say how high, and I'm
Yeah.
so much better at saying,
Mhm.
"Sorry, that doesn't work for me." I mean,
Yeah.
the client
Protecting
that
your time.
yeah, the client that keeps asking for a Saturday, I've said, "I am really sorry, but I cannot work on Saturdays. It just isn't going to happen. Please
Yeah.
pick a weekday and I'll be there."
Yeah.
I have gotten so much better. Early in my organizing career, I would do anything. I would do anything. I would go anywhere. I wouldn't care. And
Yeah.
I don't do that anymore. So,
So it was literally like client number 2, I think. And at the time, I was fully employed. So I was only taking organizing clients on Saturday. And
okay.
so we had something scheduled for Saturday. And at the last minute, he's like, hey, I need to reschedule. Can you give me some other dates? And I said, well, I could do Sunday. So I show up at his house on Sunday. I do the work. And he goes, can I be honest with you? And he was very happy with the work. But he was like trying to give me some like business guidance. And I said, sure. And he goes, your hours suck.
Amazing.
It was. And I laughed right out loud. And I said, well, thank you. I said, my actual hours are Saturdays only because I do work a full time job and I'm just doing this on Saturdays. I said, but Saturday didn't work for you. So I moved it to Sunday. And he felt like such a jerk. And he was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I said, no, it like literally, that's a me issue and my availability. So I hear you. But yeah, it was just funny. I've never ever worked a Sunday again because I was like, "That was terrible. I don't wanna
Oh,
do
yeah.
that." Yeah.
Early in my career, I worked 7 days a week. Sunday was just another day.
Yeah.
And I absolutely don't do that anymore. And I will only do a Saturday under the most dire of special circumstances.
Sure.
And I can tell you that my group chat, which includes you and 2 other people, I did a Saturday at one point recently and I got roasted. Immediately. "Why are you doing that? Why?" And I was like, "Oh my gosh, let me defend myself."
Yeah.
So
Some people have better boundaries.
yes. Well, what are some other things? So I will say, we've really talked about like mostly, going to work on a day that maybe you don't want to, but what are some other things? Because I have other things that I do that are very much like not great boundaries or like what I like to say, blurring the lines.
I mean, I will blur the lines on, "Can you help me with this?" And it's not
Yes.
really organizing related.
Me too.
And again, when you were saying, like, there's not a 5-point checklist, but one of the checklists is, do I really enjoy working with this client? And that is always the case. If I am helping someone with laundry, if I'm helping someone with their taxes, with paying their bills, with looking up their charitable donations, with calling their accountant for them, or, doing all these extra organizing adjacent tasks, it is for the best people, that are just like, the phone is a hang up for them. They're like, I can't make these calls and I need to make these calls. And I was like, I'll sit on hold for, however long we need to. And you and I'll chat while we're doing it, or we'll work on something else. And then that bleeds into, can you pick up my try cleaning?
Yeah,
And can
I've
you
done that
take
before.
all these returns to Timu? And can you drop off this package? And yeah. So the list goes on.
Yeah. That's another place I for sure blur the lines on things that I'll do. I would add to that multiple donation drops. Like I have some paint and I have some electronics and I have this glass straw that needs to go to this specific place. And I've got like this and that, you can really end up going, oh, I know a place that can go versus the one drop off that I say that you get with my
Right.
service.
Yes, 1,000%. Yes, because I will make whatever they need to have happen, we can make it happen. So you want all of this to go away, we'll find the appropriate places to get
Yes.
them. Yeah.
This is kind of a little bit off topic, but I'll do those multiple donation drops, especially with people that I say, I know this is never going to happen if they try to do it themselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
It will not occur. I want them to really get the full benefit of that experience.
Yeah.
And I want them to get these things out of their house. So I am okay with if I've got a weird thing in the back of my car that I have to drive by Dakota County, drop
Mhm.
off, you know?
And literally have medications in the front seat of the
Yeah.
passenger seat of my car right now because if they're there, I will remember to take them.
Yes.
Yeah.
So are there some things that you have learned? The way that I have had to learn how to set some better boundaries is because I recognize in myself that, oh, I'm really mad. Like not it started to get beyond resentful. I'm mad now that I said yes to X, Y, and Z. Is there something that you did that was perhaps more healthy on learning how to set some good boundaries?
Part of it was me just realizing I didn't have energy for things that I actually wanted to have energy for, whether it's spending time with family or friends or both, or yeah, there are just some life things that I was like, I'm too tired for. And then I was like, okay, I'm set my own schedule here. So that means I need to dial back some of the things that I'm doing. One of the things that I took on this year was taking on a course that is new and intense
And a lot of work.
and good, but it takes a lot of time. Yeah. And so right now I'm on a break, which is why when Melissa was like, "How about today?" Because she's, I know you got all these things going on. I was like, I'm on a school break. Noticing how much I can do while doing that too is different. And then since I know you've talked about this before on the podcast, sorry to our two male listeners, but I also went and got my hormone levels checked just to be like, is that doing
Yeah.
anything to the energy level here? And can that help too? Because I think there was a multitude of factors happening at once.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, respectfully, I think we have 4 male listeners, so
Oh,
thank you.
my
Kidding.
mistake.
It's probably none. So, I did the same thing. So I started and I did a whole menopause episode with Kim Snodgrass if you didn't listen to it, but I
Okay.
also just got on some hormones and I have noticed some positive changes. I know everyone's mileage may vary. I have definitely started to feel better, but that
Mhm.
is something that I mean, part of that is I find myself having a little bit lower patience level, and I'm hoping that will kind of rectify with some of these new things coursing through my veins. And that has led to, I think, some of these things where I'm like, I'm mad at myself that I said yes to X, Y, and Z.
Mm,
And my patience level with which obviously in the work we do has to be very high. I
right.
mean, yesterday I was like about 800 times, you're never going to use that. You're never going to use that. You're never going to use that. I had to keep it all in my head. And I
Yeah.
used to have infinite patience for that, and I find myself having a harder time, like, with some of those things, and
Is is that a tell for you? Like, what happens when you notice that you're doing
when
that?
I notice that in myself,
Yeah.
when and I'm specifically talking about organizing, I have found some this is another word that's overused, but I'll just use it here, triggers in myself,
Okay.
where I say if I start to get, like, low patience and obviously I'm always very patient with a client, but in
Of
my
course.
head, when I start going, "I cannot believe she's keeping that. This is so dumb." Guess what? It's her
Mhm.
house. She gets to do whatever she wants, even if I think it's silly.
Right.
Also, when I start to get judgmental about, "Why do you go to Costco 75 times a week? You don't need to
Mhm.
go to Costco. Why do you need 17 of XYZ thing?" When I get really judgmental in my head, rather than taking that step back and going, "There are a million reasons that the client's in this situation." That's when I know it's probably time for me to take a little bit of a break.
Yeah.
And I'm proud of myself that I recognize it because, again, what I would never want is for that to manifest in front of a client.
Right. Yeah.
And I
Right.
have a really good filter and a really good poker face,
Yeah.
but at some point when you have to stuff everything and keep it in your head, it's
Mhm.
gotta let out somewhere.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, I hear you. I think there were a multitude of things happening for me this week, if I can share, but
Please.
yeah, it was the anniversary of my brother's death and 10 years ago that he died. And so there was this added layer of grief on top of everything else that was going on. And I think every year there's been like some feelings and stuff, but somehow 10 was deeply more significant than I think I realized
Sure.
until I was crabby for 3 days straight. And you know me, that's a long stretch for me.
And it's so not you. I mean, it's so not your personality. Like,
Yeah.
I can tend to be crabby. You are not a crabby person.
Not generally. Yeah, so I woke up today, one of the things I told Melissa was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm not crabby anymore." And yeah, so all of that to say that there can just be a multitude of things happening that it's good for us to take some time like you're doing to reflect and be like, "Oh, I think I might need to pause some things here coming up." And like for me, it's Friday. We have a vacation on Monday. And I'm like, "Well, that's fantastic timing because was right on the edge here of really needing that." And it's weird how like leading right up to it, I think sometimes that makes it worse because 'cause you're like, "I know I'm going out of town, so I might as well get all of these things done right now." Appointments I've been putting off to make for myself for months suddenly seem very important, the day that you're leaving on vacation.
Well, and like we talk about with clients, it's not the stuff is a symptom, right? Like the
Sure.
disorganization and the clutter and the stuff is a symptom of something else underneath. And that could be a million different things.
Yeah.
Same thing with us. And I just talked to my daughter who's at college about this 2 hours ago, where she's had a couple things that have kind of been upsetting to her this week. And I'm like,
Mhm.
boy, that's weird. That shouldn't really be bugging her that much. And she and I got in
Mhm.
a little bit of an argument earlier this week. And I finally said to her, I was like, "I'm gonna say something and I don't want you to get mad at me." I go, "I think you are so tired. It's the end of the year." She's an RA, so she's had to stay 2 weeks longer than all of her friends are gone. She's
Yeah.
had to stay longer. Her days are not very exciting. She is ready to come home for summer break. And I was like, "I
Yeah.
think all of these things are just making you like a bunch more tense, and that's
Yeah.
causing you to kind of flip on a couple of these things that normally wouldn't bother you that much." And she's,
Yeah.
"Yeah, I know you're right." And I'm like, "Of course I'm right. I know I'm right."
I made you, I know you. Yeah.
But that's how it is with me too, is like the stuff under the stuff is,
Mhm.
you had grief and a very significant anniversary and all of those things which are hard in any given day. I got a kid graduating, leaving the
Mhm.
house. I have a lot of stress in my work life. I have a lot of things going on right now.
Right.
And all of that, compounds.
Yeah.
And that just recognizing that, I think, and just being because I'm a person who also can tend to be like, I'm gonna recriminate, like, I'm gonna be a self-recriminator about, "Well, I shouldn't be like this, and I shouldn't be cranky, and I shouldn't be this," and I'm like, we just are what we are, and we have to recognize, like, the why.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a
And
great
some
point.
things you can change and some things you can't.
Yeah. So what have you found helpful for you when you've gotten to a point of either razor thin burnout or full on burnout? What have you done to get yourself back?
Sometimes I have to, and I'm in the process of figuring out how I can do this, but one of the things that have to do is legitimately take a step fully back. Like, I have to say, I need a week off of clients, no
Mhm.
matter what's going on.
Yeah.
Not everyone's schedule works that way. I get it. I tend to be a little bit more flexible with my schedule. I understand there are lots of people, especially if you have a team. I don't have a team. And so I other people are not depending on me. My clients are depending on me, but I don't have other people depending on me. And I can sometimes just have to say, I need a few days
Yeah.
to not have to do it, to not have to do all of the things. That is incredibly hard as a business
Mhm.
owner
Yeah.
because you always have this compulsion, I think, of the wheels are gonna fall off the bus if I'm gone for 4 days.
Right.
That
Yeah.
is not the case. It's just period, the end, not I don't
Not
care if you have
true.
a team of 55 people.
Yeah.
It's
They know
just
what
not
to
true.
do. Yeah.
Yes. If you're by yourself, so sometimes I have to make a very I'm kind of the switches on or the switches off kind of a person, but sometimes it's as simple as allowing myself the permission to take a nap in the middle of the day, and that sounds so silly, but it's true.
I was literally thinking that exact same thing. I'm like, how would I answer this if Melissa asked me? And I'm like, I would talk about napping.
Yeah. You and I are deeply committed to naps. It's, I think, again, another thing that we align on and another thing that I will die on the hill. Sometimes you just need a nap.
Really. And some food, like
Yeah. Oh,
preferably food
100%.
and then a nap, and then you're a new person.
100%. And my younger daughter is about to go off to college, but she still has we always talk about her. I hope my kids never listen to this podcast. They're gonna be really mad at me. But sometimes we say she's still like a very little child inside
Mhm.
because when she is stressed out, it will start to manifest as like when she was a teeny tiny kid and we'd be like, "Babe, it's time for bed." And so I would
Yeah.
still do that to 18-year-old, taller than me, ready to go out in the world kid. I'll be like, "Babe, I really think it's time for bed. I think it's time for you to just go night night. Like, go down the hall and go to
Yeah.
sleep." And so that's what at least for me, sometimes if I just take a stupid hour nap, I
Mhm.
wake up and the world is just different.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. And sometimes if you get a really good nap, it feels like a completely different day and you get like bonus work done.
Absolutely. And so I just think there are some of those things. I'll tell you, I also will sometimes, if I'm feeling super stressed in the middle of the day or like really, really having a day, I will just do a meditation session. I love the Calm app. They have something literally called Emergency Calm. And so you can do like a 10-minute session of, okay, you're feeling like highly anxious. Let's breathe through that or whatever. That I have found that I really enjoy as well, if you don't have time for a nap.
Yeah. I like
But
that.
sometimes it's a bigger, more holistic, like, I have to figure some things out. And if I'm really feeling burned out, I really have to get down to, okay, what is actually bothering me and how do I fix that? So it's like some inner work of let me be honest with myself, which is never my favorite thing to be.
I like to also just find out like what is the bare minimum that needs to take place
Yes.
if I'm really running out of steam. It's which emails can wait till tomorrow or the next day, and which one do I really just need to get that out today,
100%. This has come up in the IO group a few times recently, but people have said, I have to give my client a comprehensive proposal.
Mm.
What do you think about X, Y, and Z? And my first response is usually, why do you have to give a comprehensive proposal? What does that mean to you? Because I think that there are a lot of things that we do in our business that we think they're required and the client doesn't need it or want it. So I would urge people to think about some of those things in their business. Like I have a friend who is also a podcaster for the business that she has, and she's like, I have to get a podcast out this week. And I'm like, why do you have to? I mean, I'm sure that there are people who would love for me to put out 5 podcast episodes a week. I don't have that ability or that energy or that time. So sometimes it'll be a month in between podcasts. Is that ideal for my business? Probably not, but sometimes that's what has to happen.
Yeah.
So MVP, minimum viable product,
Yeah.
is what I would urge people to think.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And you and I both did that with clients this week. Okay, we got some extra time. What is the minimum that needs to
Yes.
take place for you? Yeah.
What
Yeah.
can you live with? There's
Right.
ideal, and then there's again, I think a lot of times we put pressure on ourselves that a client
Mhm.
is not expecting. My client
Yeah.
was thrilled today that I got 2 of the things on her list done. She was only expecting me to get 1 done. I
Yeah.
got the first one done and I'm like, "I'm still trucking. I'm already here. Let me just do
Yep.
it."
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
done and I went down and she was in the living room and I'm like, "Okay, you're all set?" And she's, "Oh, okay. So next time you can do the girls' bathroom." I'm like, "Nope, already done."
Yeah.
She was thrilled.
Right. Right.
And
You set that expectation early. That's what
I
you
did.
did really well, was communicating clearly of, "Hey, I only have time for one of these things today."
Yep,
Yeah. And then you underpromised and overdelivered, which is
sure did.
always the key to surprise and delight.
I learned underpromise and overdeliver as a phrase early in my so I was not a business major, I was a psychology major, and so I didn't have any business knowledge when I got a big girl business job when I graduated from college, and so there were all these things that I'm sure everybody learned in college that I never learned, but underpromise and overdeliver was something that I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's a fun phrase." But
It is.
I have used it since then because the alternative is not great and no one likes it.
No, no
Overpromising and
one likes that.
underdelivering
Yeah.
is terrible. So I would
Yeah.
rather go, it's surprise and delight, right?
Yeah.
My client was delighted that I got 2 things done.
Absolutely. We did the same thing yesterday. We were like, okay, bottom line, we'll get all the remaining furniture built. Did we also do 2 closets and a space in the basement? Yes, we did.
Amazing.
But there were multiples of us, so we could divide and conquer.
Yeah. Let's
But
just talk for a hot second about you had 6 people on your team all do how many times have you ever had 6 people on one project in a day?
I mean, less than 10, but probably
Okay.
more than 5.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Because that was one of the things this client was nervous about. She's like, "Have you done this before?" I was like, "Yes, this is not our first rodeo. You are not my guinea pig." And she's like, "Oh, okay." But the guinea pig didn't know they were the guinea pig either.
I was just about to say, by the way, this is another thing that we've talked about before at some juncture.
Yeah.
Lie to people. I mean, even just don't lie. Don't necessarily
Not
be
lie. I just didn't
no.
say, "By the way, this is the first time we've ever done 6. Let's see how it goes."
Right,
Yeah.
that's what I mean is I don't mean lie, I just mean you also don't need to volunteer extra information that no one has asked for. So the first person that ever got 6 people, you didn't say, "I'm just letting you know this is the first time we've ever done this." Don't do that.
No, no one's asking for that information.
Don't do that.
What we were asking for is, here's the scope of work we want done, and we want it done in 1 day. And I looked at the scope of work and I said, I think that's going to take 6. And she goes, okay. And so we
Yeah,
did. And it was great. And the team loved it. They loved the 6 people day.
everybody got together. You
Yeah.
all got to work together and y that's fun.
Yeah. So I would say, yeah, we do 4 all of the time.
Okay.
And 5 and 6 is a little bit more rare, but when we get to those numbers, the team, the energy just comes in. Even on that sweet client, the first day we arrived, as you know, each person's coming in, we're introducing ourselves. She goes, "Oh, I just love the energy already."
Aw,
And that's fun. It just sets you off on the right foot to be like, "We're here, we're ready to work, we're ready to help. Let's dive in." And we've already talked about the plan enough that everybody knows what we're doing.
I love it.
Thanks. It's
So,
been fun.
what would you say to someone who maybe like you or myself are struggling a little bit with these things? What would you recommend, maybe even to yourself or to me, your friend?
Yeah. I feel like this is gonna sound a little bit cliche, but hopefully not. I feel like there's a lot of, I'm trying to think of another word and I can't, so I'm just gonna say it twice. I feel like there's a lot of value, benefit to identifying our values and figuring out what really is important to us and making sure that the choices that we're making are aligning with that. Because when that's out of whack, then I think that's when we get crabby, we get short with people that we love and care about. We start saying no to things that we typically would go to and enjoy and be refreshed and refueled by. And then that just leads to more and more maybe unaligned decision making, and then we wrap ourselves into a tizzy, and then we're like, "Oh my gosh, I'm on the edge of burnout. I wonder why."
Yeah.
Just speaking about myself here.
Yeah.
But I think the more that we can say, "Okay, you know what? Spending time with friends and family is important to me. So let's make sure that there is time carved out for that each week. What does that look like? Do I actually need to put it on the calendar?" Like I do, because left uninterrupted, I do not have in the house. I will
Yep.
just keep working and
Yes.
keep working because there's always more to do. So there are some intentional evenings and days of the month that are scheduled out to be like, nope, we got to stop there, you know?
I think being self-aware also is
Mhm.
super important.
Yeah.
like, recognizing before someone outside of you has to say, "Boy, you've really been something lately." Or before you really, upset. I mean, and I think in a lot of cases, we certainly don't show these things to our clients. We show
Mhm.
them to the people that we go home to
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
to our friends and
Mhm.
to other things. And, I found myself, I had a dinner this week with friends, kind of a standing monthly dinner. And I was like, I'm so tired. I just don't want to go.
Mm.
And then I'm like, "No, you made a commitment." And then I was, "Oh, but I make commitments to so many things." And I'm like, "No, just go." Because I was like, my friends are important
Yeah.
and my friends show up for me when I need them to. And so I need to show up even if, and so if I am too tired, too cranky, and too all the things, then I need to examine some of these other things. And
Yeah.
so recognizing, I love what you said about what are your values and what are the things that are truly important to you. Because
Mhm.
I definitely am someone that can put work above everything else.
Mm.
And so then I say yes to all the work things and start saying no to the other things that might actually be more important.
Yeah. Yeah. I said yes to all the fun things last weekend, and usually I do have to sneak some work in because
Yeah.
I don't yeah, it just needs to happen to keep things running. And I filled the weekend with all non-work things. So
Yeah.
Monday and Tuesday, were crammed with a little bit of work, and this is how it got to the end of the week, and I was just like, ah.
Yeah.
But the fun things were so fun, like getting together with an old friend that I hadn't seen in a really long time and celebrating something significant in their life, and then seeing another friend perform live music, like soul-filling things that that gassed me up for the whole week, or well, until I tanked on Wednesday or Thursday.
Understandably. Yes.
Yeah, but still, it's good to actually like you were saying, you went and did the thing with your friends to remind yourself that, "Oh, yeah, I do doing this because it's
Yeah.
really easy for me to get in my head and be like, "I know I like doing that, but those things are gonna be there later." And then that is, to your point, putting work above everything else, which is not the way that my values actually align.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's what my life looks like, but if it's not matching, that disconnect is gonna show up somewhere.
Well, and I will say sometimes when I see other people who have those really clear boundaries, especially on like family versus work stuff, just home life versus work life.
Yeah.
There was someone that I saw the other day was like, I'm totally booked up for 2 months and whatever, and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, well, the answer to me is open up more times on your calendar. And I'm like, well, that's not the answer for her.
Mm.
She doesn't want to have more time on her calendar open up. She wants to have that balance. And this is something that I struggle with. So of course my first answer was probably toxic, right? I didn't actually say that to her, by the way, but my
Sure.
first thought was just put more time on your calendar. Like maybe just do a Saturday. I don't know. And then I'm like, well, that's ridiculous. So I just want to I'm being very transparent here that I have some
Yeah.
problematic thinking that I'm trying to work on. And that's hard.
Yeah, it is hard work. So darn neural pathways, they're just so downtrodden and
They're
yeah,
there.
yeah,
They are there. Well, but just think in general, we're all such a freaking work in progress. It doesn't matter if you are 20 years old or 30 years old or 50 or 60. Like, we all have things that are good and things that we maybe need to work on. And this is something that you and I are just trying to work on.
yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for being here. As usual, you have been a very frequent guest on this program.
Thank
Thank
you
you
for
very much.
having me back. It is a pleasure to just chat with you in general anytime, but here in a way that hopefully there's some takeaways for other organizers to just, don't do all the things we do.
Yeah. We just want to tell everyone it's not all sunshine and rainbows. And by the way, if you think I have all of my act together because I, help people out, I don't. We are all working through it together and we
Yep.
all
Doing the
struggle
best
with
we can.
things. Yeah, and I think again, I've said this a million times, but social media gives us this idea that like everybody has it together except for me, and that is just it's so not true.
Yeah. Doing the
So,
best we can with what we have, right?
absolutely correct. Well, thank you for being here.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.